Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Japan and we're going to have a look at another collaboration beer. So both of the breweries involved in this one have featured on the channel quite a few times before. They are still both relatively new additions to the Japanese beer scene, but they've built up very good reputations for themselves during that short lifetime thus far. And if people were to ask me about the home brewery, I would say that they're best known for the different kinds of IPAs, notably the hazy IPAs, of course, but they have been diversifying quite a lot in recent times and doing lots and lots of different styles. But the away brewery have always been quite diverse in their output and not afraid to try different things. Both breweries, though, very solid based on my experiences thus far, and they are definitely worth checking out if you're interested in the Japanese beer scene. The beer we're going to have a look at today, though, is a style that I've had a few times from the home brewery. I don't think I've ever had it from the away brewery, though, but it's a style that I know the home brewery can do very well. One that is growing a little bit in popularity too, I would say, here in Japan, but this one is supposed to be a really nice take on the style, and it's also the fourth collaboration between these breweries because they do quite a bit together. So yeah, needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for the home side of things then, we are going to head a bit to the north of me here in Osaka, up to Shizuoka Prefecture. We are going to go to the Mochimune area of Shizuoka City, to be precise, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful West Coast Brewing. So this particular beer is called Windows to Vertere. It is the 2024 edition, comes in at 9% ABV, and this one is a New England Hazy Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA. And of course, as you might have guessed by the name of this one, it's brewed in collaboration with Vertere, who are from Okutama in Western Tokyo Prefecture, a little bit even further north. So yeah, at the time of filming, which is December 2024, this is one of West Coast Brewing's latest releases. I have actually seen that Vertere have their own version of this one, which I will try and keep an eye out for as well, and if I can, I will review that for you. But yeah, this is the first time I'm having a look at one of the West Coast and Vertere collaborations, despite having seen them on social media a couple of times. But yeah, the New England Triple IPA is a beer that I've had a good few times from West Coast Brewing before, but I don't think I've had one of these from Vertere, if memory serves me correctly. I've had a few New England doubles, but I don't think a triple. But regardless, both very capable breweries, and I'm very curious to see what they can do when they put their heads together. So let's crack on with this one, as I said, and see what it's got in store for us. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about both breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery websites for both West Coast Brewing and Vertere, and the links to my other reviews that I've done from these breweries before, and we will no doubt add more to both of those lists at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Japanese playlist along with a number of other things. That's being added to very regularly at the moment, of course, because I am currently in Japan visiting my little boy, and I'm over here quite regularly, so the Japanese playlist is very often updated. But do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days, even if I do say so myself. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you about West Coast Brewing first, since they are the home brewery in this instance. So yeah, as I mentioned to you a minute ago, West Coast Brewing are based in Mochimune in Shizuoka here in Japan, and you'll find this right next to Mount Fuji, so definitely worth visiting. But the brewery was founded back in 2019 by Derek Baston, who's originally from Seattle in Washington in the Pacific Northwest over in the US, and he previously worked as an architect. So he originally came to Shizuoka back in 2003, and he would often visit different breweries during his trips home to the US. and he said that he'd always been inspired by the craftsmanship that went into the West Coast US beers, and he wanted to bring some of that back to Japan with him because he felt that there wasn't many breweries doing this at the time. So apparently the idea to found his own brewery can be traced back to 2014 when he designed the Shizuoka distillery for Gaia Flow, who have quite a few places all over Japan. But this was his first real look inside the brewing and distilling world, and it was this that inspired him to visit other breweries around Japan and also distilleries and talk to those inside the industry. And apparently doing this made the whole process of starting his own brewery seem a lot less daunting. So the first thing he did was to found a bar in Shizuoka called 12 to test the water and see if the types of beer that he wanted to brew would be a hit, and it soon became quite obvious that they would be. So they founded a premises in an abandoned tuna processing factory in the Mochimune marina, and they renovated it and converted it into a brewery. The brewery itself is equipped with a 10 BBL system, which is around 1600 litres per brew, and they've got 10 fermentation vessels and 2 bright beer tanks. They produce somewhere between 12 and 20,000 litres of beer per month, and the 3 brewers are Satoshi Niwa, who's from Japan, he's the brewing manager, then they've got Cedric Mel, who's from France, and also Grant Scholler, who's from the US. But the name, the first few years they focused mainly on brewing different kinds of IPAs, but they've started up a barrel program now. They're doing some sour beers and big imperial stouts and things like this, and they've been opening a number of bars and tap rooms as well. This includes Bao, which is a gyoza restaurant, 12, the original izakaya, and number 3, a bottle shop. These can all be found in Shizuoka City. They've got the Oasis Bar in Hamamatsu, and also Umeda 1, which is a bar, and the Dark Lab, which is a kind of bar restaurant thing down here in Osaka as well. The brewery is of course very well known for their mascot, which is called the Hop Dude. He appears on pretty much all of the West Coast Brewing artwork, and this is designed by Simon Henshaw, who I believe is from Manchester in England. He's quite well known in the beer world. I think he does things for a couple of different breweries actually. But as of December 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 410 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. And like I said to you, they are best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs. Their West Coast IPAs are always very good in my opinion as well, but in recent times they have been producing quite a few sours and dark beers as well, which has been quite nice to see, because yeah, it's always nice to see breweries try different beers and do them quite well. There's quite a few lagers from these guys too, come to think of it. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about West Coast Brewing for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all of the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on to the away brewery then. So we're going to go a little bit further north up to Tokyo Prefecture. So Vertere, as I mentioned to you earlier, are based in Okutama, which is in the western part of Tokyo Prefecture, and that's about 1.5 hours by train from central Tokyo. The 2 men behind this company are Hikaru Suzuki and Kage Tsujinogi, who is the brewer, but apparently the 2 had dreamed of starting a company together since they were in high school. They were old high school friends. But Kage worked in a brew pub called Koenji, and he spent 3 years learning to brew and perfecting his own recipes, and a number of those recipes were the early beers that were released by Vertere. So the company started in a 70-year-old traditional house about 30 seconds from the front of Okutama Station, but apparently it took them over 6 months to renovate the house and get it ready to host their restaurant and brewery. And they started off with 3 taps in 2015, but they soon upgraded their tap system to 10 taps, and all of these are of course now their own beers. The brewing takes place in a small hut which is about 7.5 square meters, and you'll find this behind the restaurant and bar counter. And at the moment they have 2 brew kits. They've got a 500 litre and a 1000 litre brew kit, and they've been gradually expanding their fermentation capacity over the last few years. In 2018 they also started cultivating hops in a field about 20 minutes drive away from the house, and they've been working to build up their harvest every year. They started canning their beers as well in 2019, and the first cans were released in September of that year, and they have over the last few years just been been working to get those beers all across Japan, and of course I've seen some of them back in Hong Kong as well. But like I mentioned earlier, this brewery has been quite diverse in the output of different styles and things like that. I've had sour IPAs from them. I'd say that's a style that they're particularly good at. In fact, they do New England hazies quite often. I've had a red IPA, an imperial stout, and pretty much any style this brewery has a go at, they tend to be pretty damn good. And they like to name a lot of their beers after different kind of plant species and insect species and things like this. So I think they do kind of try and embody the Japanese kind of Shinto tradition and respect nature and things. So that's one of the really interesting facts, I would say, about Vertere as well. But still a relatively small operation, but they have been doing pretty well, and they've got a very good reputation. But yeah, as of December 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 130 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and that number will no doubt continue to increase as time goes on. But yeah, that's everything I can tell you about Vertere for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a wee bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, I think that is everything we really need to say about the breweries. There wasn't too much to add about the beer, in fact. Like I said, this one is the fourth collaboration, or part of the fourth collaboration between West Coast Brewing and Vertere. And the little story they have behind this one is as follows. A number of mysterious windows that suddenly appeared all over Shizuoka and mysteriously float in the air. No matter how much you look into them from this side, all you can see is a world of pure white and light, a symbol of mystery that even an alchemist cannot explain who did it or what it means. This year, brewers from both companies will travel between Shizuoka and Okutama and brew beers of different styles together using the same main hops, Motueka and Motueka Hopkeef. The image of gentle taste created by Vertere has been incorporated into the West Coast Brewing version recipe, and fine adjustments have been made. An overflowing of tropical aroma with rich aromas of citrus fruits and melon, an exquisite balance of sweet aromas reminiscent of frosting and bubblegum, herbal floral notes, and a fresh grassy flavour. So yeah, that's the little blurb from West Coast Brewing in this one. As we said earlier, it comes in at 9% ABV. It's a New England Hazy Triple IPA. I'd just like you to have a little look at the artwork on this one. So yeah, I think that's meant to be the kind of Mochimune harbour where where West Coast Brewing are based, and I think this one here is meant to be a little bit more representative of Okutama in Tokyo Prefecture, which is supposed to be a lovely little town. I do want to go up there. I want to visit both of these breweries and do out and about videos, so keep your eyes peeled for that in the future. But like we said earlier, 9% New England Hazy Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA with Motueka in it. Motueka is of course a New Zealand hop, 8% alpha acid, gives you that lovely juicy limey note to it. But let's get this guy out into the glass then and see what it's all about. Yeah, I have actually seen on social media the Vertere version of this, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get a hold of that now. Unfortunately, it's probably sold out, but this one, as I think I said, I got from Dark Lab here in Osaka, who are obviously going to have quite a lot of West Coast Brewing beers, but I have to say this one looks very, very nice. So we've got about 80% of the beer out and into the glass, and we can safely say that it's about a finger and a third of a frothy cream coloured head that's come on this one. If I bring that up to the camera, you can see some smaller bubbles on the surface of the liquid there, then it gets a little bit bumpier the further up that you go. But this one's got a lovely kind of deep yellow colour to it. I would say like a mixed tropical fruit juice. I always like comparing the appearance of New England IPAs to different fruit juices because that's really just what they remind me of. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour too, but you really don't have to care about that too much when it comes to different kinds of IPAs. But yeah, this one is pretty damn opaque, of course, and you kind of expect that when you're at 9% ABV, but remember the opacity or haziness of these beers, if you want to call it that, depends on the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use. But yeah, not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one, but it looks pretty much as you would expect from any sort of New England IPA. But yeah, the head has just faded away to be a kind of thin, more foamy layer, but it looks great, this one, I have to say that. But yeah, nothing surprising about that when you consider what style it is. So yeah, let's move on then and have a wee look at the aroma of this one. Nothing else we need to say about the appearance. Oh, that's quite interesting. This one, I think, is a really soft, smooth, and quite creamy leaning, more oaty New England IPA. But yeah, very soft fruity juiciness, soft green component, but yeah, big oaty and creamy. So as I've explained in a number of New England reviews before, for me, there are 6 elements to think about when it comes to the malty and yeasty side of these New England IPAs. You've got the kind of farmhousey and yeasty character and the rye leaning grainy side of things. Those 2 elements are a bit more common in the OG New England brewed New England IPAs, but the other elements are your kind of wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, and also the sweeter side of things. And as the style has evolved and moved away from New England to other places, that seems to be the direction that it's kind of moved in. And like I say, this one is a very oaty leaning New England IPA, just based on first aroma. But yeah, it smells really, really nice actually. But like they said, it's very grassy and, you know, a lot of juicy lime from the Motueka in this one, that's for sure. Yeah, so in terms of the overall aroma of this beer, let's just try and break that down and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. The backbone of this beer is, of course, that kind of soft, fresh, white bready bread crust, as you would always expect. There's a little bit of woodiness in there, a little bit of cracker, I would say. It's a little bit of woodiness, a little bit of cracker. Then on top of that, maybe a very slight touch of like a sweet brown bready character. I'm also getting some very nice, I'm also getting some very nice kind of like fluffy white bready notes coming out of this one. I'd also say there's not too much wheat in this one, but you know, I could be wrong about that. European wheat is, of course, a little bit drier and more easy to detect for me, I would say, whereas American wheat is really, really smooth. So there could be some wheat in this, and if there is, I think it's North American wheat that's been used in here, because the smoothness of this beer in the aroma and the sweetness that it has is quite interesting. But on top of that wheaty character, there's a lot of oat for me, and I wouldn't say the oat doesn't smell, you know, madly creamy. It's almost a little bit more like it's almost a little bit more like a slightly drier oat creamer, something like that. So yeah, the oaty notes in this beer are quite visible and they are quite sweet, but you can detect those more, that kind of more dry character to it as well, which is quite interesting. So yeah, the malty side of this beer, there's nothing unusual about it, but it's certainly one of the kind of sweeter ones I remember having had from West Coast Brewing. There's a little touch of like Werther's Original butter candy butterscotch coming out of this one, and a wee bit of biscuit, but with it being a 9% triple IPA, that's kind of to be expected in all honesty. So yeah, that's really quite nice actually. Malty side of this beer is good, and the more that you smell it, of course, the more you get that kind of butter candy butterscotchy sort of thing. So yeah, what else can we say about this malty side of things? I don't know if there is too much else, to be honest. But yeah, at the back of the nose, the yeasty side of this one's quite interesting. I get quite a little bit of kind of brown bready character out of it. It's kind of sweet and almost slightly farmhousey in that sense as well. But yeah, more kind of sweet brown bready, kind of grainy brown bready character coming out of the the malty the yeasty side of this one too. So yeah, the way that the malty yeasty side of this beer goes together is really nice. Yeah, a little bit of cracker and a little bit of a more farmhousey and sweet brown bready character coming out of this one, I would say. So yeah, happy enough with that. Let's go on to the green component of this one and the hoppy side of the beer. So, as I've often said in these IPA reviews, there are three types of hoppings that you can do with these beers. You've got early edition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of your wort boil. That gives you mainly bitterness, or pretty much all bitterness actually, and a deeper, danker green component. You've got late addition hopping, which takes place within the last half hour of the wort boil. That gives you a little bit of bitterness, mainly flavour aroma, and it contributes a very bright green component to the beer. Then you've got dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, and that's all about flavour and aroma, and it gives you a very bright green component, I would say. But yeah, New England IPAs tend to rely on late addition and dry hopping, which is why they're kind of softer and more juicy. West Coast IPAs use all three types of hopping, which is why they're kind of more bitter and deep and dank and things like that. And in here, the hop keef, I think that's a hop oil product, and it kind of has the same effect as cryo. It gives you a very kind of smooth green component, and that's immediately obvious in this particular beer. There's a teeny little bit of earthiness in there and almost a little touch of woody herbal character, but yeah, little bit of floral note, lots and lots of grassiness in this beer. But yeah, beyond that, I don't know if there's much else we should say about the. I don't know if there's much else we should say about the kind of the green component in this one, but yeah. Fruity wise, it's quite interesting because if it's, I'm curious if it is only mosaic in this, only Motueka in this one, because I do get a little bit of tropical note out of this beer, so I wouldn't have been surprised by the use of a little bit of maybe Idaho 7 or something like that. I'm getting little notes of like apricot and passion fruit and maybe a little touch of pineapple and things. There is like a softer tropical note in this one, and again, it makes me think of Idaho 7, the way that the tropical side of this beer. So that could of course be from the yeast that they've used in here. So yeah, that's an interesting point to make about this one, but I definitely get quite a lot of that gooseberry, quite a little bit of gooseberry character out of this one, and the kind of more juicy and slightly sharper lime that you would expect of a Motueka, and that kind of mixes in with the kind of grassy notes that the beer has. But all in all, it's a really interesting aroma, this one. Yeah, grassy and limey and gooseberry-like, I think, is a good way to describe what's going on with this particular beer. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for the aroma section. As I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But yeah, I think it's about time for us to taste this one and see what it's all about. So yeah, this one is Windows to Vertere, the 2024 edition, brewed by West Coast Brewing in Mochimune, Shizuoka, here in Japan, in collaboration with Vertere from Okutama in Toku Prefecture, also here in Japan. 9% New England Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, let's try this and see what it's all about. Slàinte, skål, cheers, kanpai. Oh, that's really, really nice. It's, I will say, for a 9%er, it's dangerously drinkable, but you often get this with Japanese beers. As I've explained many a time, the Japanese like beers to be kind of drinkable, so they all, beer is viewed mainly as something that should go down easy and be drinkable. So when it comes to Japanese craft beer, quite often what you'll find is, regardless of the style, it just always has that slightly lighter and cleaner mouthfeel in comparison to the same style brewed in other countries. You can get that here. So this beer is kind of dangerously drinkable for a 9% ABV triple IPA, but it is really, really damn nice. But both breweries are very capable in this style category, so I'm not surprised. But yeah, This is kind of an oily and slick, but yeah, OT leaning New England Triple IPA. So it gets a big thumbs up from me. I think this is it's really very nice. See if we got space for all of the rest of it. There we go. I think that did get a little bit more opaque with that last little pour in there, but yeah, really damn solid beer. This one isn't my favourite I've had from either brewery. It's kind of hard to say, but this is really damn good and absolutely worth trying. But yeah, let's do as we always do then. We'll break the beer down and describe it for you more in depth. We'll start on that middle third of the palate. As I've often said, the backbone of the beer is that lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust. You get that right away in this one. If you move further forward on that middle third of your palate, you get a little touch of kind of woody character coming out of this one. Then you've got a wee bit of like Jacob's cream cracker sitting on top of that, and you get more and more of that flavour the further into the aftertaste that you go. So yeah, on top of that kind of crackery layer, one thing I will say that I think, you know, where the aroma and the flavour diverge a little bit is you do get a fair little bit of like a sweet wholemeal brown bready character coming out of this one, which I do really enjoy. And then above that you can feel the barley malt white bready layer, which actually has a little bit of graininess and dryness into the aftertaste with this beer. And then yeah, you have the more dense wheaty white bready character coming out of this one. And the wheat's quite interesting because it does give you a little bit of bitiness further back on the palate and a wee bit more sweetness coming further forward. As I've often said, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. So yeah, you can feel that little bit of diversity in flavour with regard to the wheat in this particular beer too. So yeah, that's noticeable there. On top of that wheaty layer though, you start to get the big oaty note out of the beer, and I still think the oaty side of this one dominates. So down the middle line of your tongue, you can feel the oats are at their kind of creamiest and thickest. And as you move out toward the edge of the palate, you can feel that the oats just get that little bit drier. And as I've often said, oats in a New England IPA can very often be a rough indicator of how fresh your IPA is. Essentially, the creamier they are, the fresher the beer is, the drier they are, the older it is. But yeah, you do get a little bit of dryness out of the oat on this one. The further out toward the edge of your palate you go. But it said this one was packaged on the 9th of December 2024. So this is pretty damn fresh. It's about, yeah, maybe just under 3 weeks old at the time of drinking. So this is very fresh. But still, yeah, the oats are a wee bit drier in this one. Dead centre of your palate here, you've got that little circle where you get the Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of flavours. That's the boozy part of the beer at 9% ABV. That is kind of to be expected in this one. Round the edge of that, you've got a little bit of a kind of Werther's Original butter can, more of a kind of McVitie's Digestive Biscuit, sorry. So yeah, the Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotch is there at the core. Then there's a wee bit of a more McVitie's Digestive Biscuit, sitting on top of that. But like I say, that sits on top of all of the oaty flavour coming out of this beer. But yeah, I think that covers everything we need to say about the middle third of your palate in this beer. So let's go to the back third of your palate. And as I've often said, the back third of your palate will give you very similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, but just at different intensities. And of course, then you've got the yeasty side of the beer sitting on top of that. So yeah, border region between middle and back third of your palate. You get that nice little bit of bready build up in there, the brown bread in the base, the barley white bread in the middle, and the kind of green, the more wheaty kind of character sitting on top of that. Then yeah, the base of the back third of your palate, you've got the bread crusty notes in there again, which feel a little bit kind of more drier and grainy. The cracker sits on top of that. Then yeah, you've got the brown bready layer, which feels that little bit lighter, taller, and more airy. The the kind of barley malt white bready layer that sits above that, which again feels a little bit lighter, taller, and more airy. Then you've got that more dense, wheaty white bready character just sitting above that. So yeah, you can feel on top of that a little bit of an almost drier brown sugary character just creeps over the top, and then yeah, you've got all the yeasty side of things sitting on top of that back third of your palate. So let's have a wee look at those yeasty characters then. So yeah, I think the yeasty character shows itself a little bit more into the aftertaste with this beer, but it has got a fair wee bit of graininess and sweetness to it. Like, at its core, it feels like it's a kind of sweet, dense, brown bready character that comes out of it. And then just as you move out toward the edges of that, it's got a little bit more graininess, and then yeah, you've got a wee bit more of a kind of dry, white bready and crackery bread crust kind of around there. But yeah, that yeasty character in this one kind of lingers into the aftertaste a wee bit, and it kind of gives you a good bridge or a good balance with the kind of more wheaty bitey characters that come out into the aftertaste as well. But yeah, definitely back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, the kind of flavour just kind of compresses down and squashes together that wee bit more. But yeah, I think we've said everything we need to about the malty and yeasty side of things with this one. More grainy and brown bready and crackery into the aftertaste, but then yeah, you've got that nice kind of you've got that nice kind of sweet, creamy, oaty character coming out of this one too, but it's quite oily and slick overall. But yeah, let's go on to the green component with this beer then, and the hoppy side of things. Back corners of the palate, there is a good little bit of earthiness in there, which shows its head a little bit more into the aftertaste. And I would say that as you come further forward, you get a little touch of pine resin, but then quite quickly it becomes more of a kind of floral aromatic spice, and then round the front curve of the tongue, it's that little bit lighter and more grassy. And there's a wee touch of zestiness in there, but generally speaking, the green component does give you a wee bit of bitterness, but it's actually quite oily at the same time. So yeah, really interesting from that perspective as well. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else we need to say about the green side of the hop. So let's go on to the fruity side of things then. So the border region and front third of your palate generally, I should say too. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of kind of bready build up in there. You've got the brown bread in the base, the kind of white barley bread in the middle, and then the more dense wheaty white bread on top. The base of that front third of your palate is of course the fresh white bready bread crust. You've got the cracker sitting on top of that, the brown bread, the white bread, then the more smooth. You're getting really the smooth side of the wheat there. But then of course on top of that you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So let's focus on that fruity side of things then, just to kind of round off. So yeah, the fruity side of the beer for me is quite interesting. Yeah, the Mochimune is very, very obvious in this one. I mean, the hop that you could compare the Mochimune to would be Equinox, which gives you a kind of sharper line, whereas obviously that's an American hop, whereas the New Zealand one gives you that soft juiciness. And yeah, there's a lot of soft juicy lime to this one, but I still get a fair little bit of tropical character out of this one. So I think there might be either another New Zealand hop in this one that's giving you that soft tropical character, or it could be something like a bit of Idaho 7. But yeah, at the back of that front third of your palate, there's a little bit of a slightly kind of peachy character to the beer. As you move further forward, a wee bit of mango, but yeah, quite a little bit of kind of dried apricot in the base of the fruity character, and a wee bit of pineapple on top of that. But yeah, the front half of that oily bubble and that front third of your tongue is more about the kind of limey character, and it kind of mixes with all the kind of grassy notes around the front curve of your tongue too. So yeah, the fruity side of this one's quite interesting. The Mochimune is definitely obvious, but I think there is at least one other hop in there, such as like Idaho 7 or something like that. You've got the likes of Kohatu and Nectaron and all these kind of things that could give you the fruity notes you're getting out of this beer. But yeah, all in all, really, really nicely done, and very slick, oily New England triple IPA, this one in my mind. So I think we've said everything we need about the flavour. Let's, round off with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So just kind of touched on that there. For me, this beer, yeah, I think this one, like I say, very oily and very slick. The carbonation is very, very smooth. I'd put this one kind of at the bottom end of full-bodied. IBU wise, I think this beer is maybe 40 or 50 IBUs. In all honesty, it does feel quite balanced. I think there's a little bit of bitterness that lingers there, a sort of floral aromatic bitterness that lingers into the aftertaste. But the malt base has a bit of dryness underneath, smoothness in the middle, and a more kind of creamy and slightly oily sweetness on top. And the fruity side of this one, like I said, there's a kind of softer, drier, tropical note to this one. But yeah, gives you that more juicy, and I don't know if zippy is the right word, but gives you a wee bit of sharpness and stuff. And zestiness, I think, is probably a better word actually. It gives you that more zesty character into the aftertaste, that's for sure. But yeah, another very, very nice New England triple IPA from West Coast Brewing, Vertere. As I said, I can't remember if I've had a triple from them, but I've certainly had some very nice doubles. So a style that both breweries are quite capable with this one. But yeah, I really enjoy this, a more grassy, limey, and kind of oaty, creamy leaning New England triple IPA, this one. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that. This one was the Windows to Vertere 2024 edition, a New England hazy imperial triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA at 9% ABV, brewed by West Coast Brewing in Mochimune in Shizuoka, in Japan, in collaboration with the wonderful Vertere from Okutama in Tokyo Prefecture, a little bit more further north, also here in Japan. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are, both from West Coast Brewing and from Vertere. We will no doubt return to both breweries in the fairly near future. But yeah, very nice, kind of oily, slick, and more kind of limey and oaty leaning New England triple IPA, this one. So if that's your thing, definitely check this one out. But in the meantime, check out my social media, check out the brewery's social media, and I'll see you guys in another review very, very shortly. Ciao just now.